Yeah, Jackson Holiday, he broke the hamate bone. Jordan Westberg, their third baseman, he's not going to be ready for the start of the season. He's dealing with he has a UCL injury. It's an elbow injury. Who else is going to pitch high leverage? Who's going to pitch the eighth and ninth inning for this team on the nights when Ryan Helsley needs a blow, right?
So we already got you for probably another 15 minutes. So I don't get Masson, so I haven't been able to watch any or listen to any sports on the Orioles. So you're basically, unless Austin, you guys can talk about it, but I don't know too much. I do know that I've heard you say that Holiday was hurt and somebody else was hurt.
Yeah, Jackson Holiday, he broke the hamate bone, which is it's actually it's not a completely unheard of injury in baseball, where you're swinging the bat. I can remember Ken Griffey Jr. Probably about close to 30 years ago, broke his hamate bone. He did that right before spring training started. So he's not going to be ready for opening day, but he should be back pretty soon after that. I don't think he's going to miss more than a week or two. If you recall, Gunnar Henderson missed the first week of the season last year with a different injury. I think it's going to be a similar timetable. I mean, I know he spoke to reporters in Sarasota the other day, and he's hopeful that no, he's not going to play on opening day for the Orioles, but he's hopeful that he could be ready. Like he could be in Norfolk, a AAA affiliate. He could be in their starting lineup for their opening day and play, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 games with them just to get his timing and everything, and then be ready to rejoin the Orioles. Jordan Westberg, their third baseman, he's not going to be ready for the start of the season. He's dealing with he has a UCL injury. It's an elbow injury that pitchers that typically means Tommy John surgery. So they have not done surgery. He had an injection to see if that can help with some of the healing. He's out for at least April. With a position player for Tommy John surgery, it's not, you think of a pitcher that's like 12 to 18 months. It's not as extensive of a recovery for a position player. So they probably have until about the All-Star break to kind of figure out, and that's not to say he couldn't be back sooner than that. Yeah. But that would probably be about where they would need to say if he ultimately needs to get Tommy John surgery, that he could have the surgery and then be ready for next year. So, but in the meantime, he got a second opinion, and for right now, not every elbow injury, despite what we think, because we always think when something happens with a pitcher with their elbow, you say, oh, he's going to get Tommy John. Sometimes it can be avoided, but I think that there's certainly a lot of question about, one, when will we come back? Two, will he be able to play third base, or will he only be a DH or whatever? But it's a shame because Jordan Westberg's been snake bitten now over the last year or two with injuries. I mean, this is a guy who, his first full year in the majors was an all-star. Was on his way to being one of their best players and just has not been able to stay healthy. So yeah, they're down a couple guys in the infield right off the bat, which in Holiday's case, again, not too long, but Westberg, a little more of a moving target and a little bit of a if, not necessarily when he's going to be back.
I was going to say, do you feel like they've done enough to address pitching? I know they just got this Ryan Helsley from, I think it was the Mets, I think. And, a repeat of history, it seems. We're getting a pitcher who seems to be on the downward spiral of their career. A common theme between the Orioles and the Ravens seems to be, we hope coaching can bring back what was once either great talent or talent that we hoped would be and make it for a winning season. He seems to be an 0-3 record. Last year, he had like a 7.2 ERA. Not super hopeful, and that is the main pitching move I've heard of. But you probably certainly know more or plans for more. How does the pitching look so far? That's my biggest concern, right? Bautista's out.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly something. I mean, I'll say this. I think their starting rotation is in a much better place than it was a year ago at this time. I do think you're kind of alluding to the bullpen, and I'll get to that in a moment. But, Trevor Rogers was one of the best pitchers in baseball over the second half of last year. He's their opening day starter. They have him. Kyle Bradish is poised for his first full season since 23. Mm-hmm. And if you remember, he was fourth in Cy Young voting that year. He was on his way to becoming a legitimate ace. So they have those two. They acquired Shane Baz in a trade with the Rays. Look, his numbers to this point in his career aren't overly impressive. He didn't have a great season last year for the Rays, but to me, and they traded away Grayson Rodriguez earlier in the offseason to get Taylor Ward, their new left fielder. He's kind of Grayson Rodriguez, except he's been healthy for the last year and a half. So those three guys give them a lot of upside, a lot of potential that, frankly, they just did not have last year. I mean, to your point, they had Charlie Morton, who was 41 years old. They had Suganu coming over from Japan, who was 35, and all that. So I do think that they also added Chris Bassett, who should give them innings, and he's a ground ball pitcher, and he's a good veteran leader for that rotation. So I feel pretty good about their rotation. Not that it's going to be the best in baseball or anything crazy, but I think it can be good enough, and I think there's upside that it could be better than that even. So, but to get to your point, the bullpen. Now, they signed Ryan Helsley, who I think we need to frame the proper context for what happened with him last year. So he was with the Cardinals. He was an all-star in 2024. He was an all-star in 2022. He had a 3-year period where he was absolutely one of the very best closers in baseball. So he was traded at the deadline last year to the Mets, and there's no sugarcoating it. He absolutely struggled, and he struggled big time. However, and this is something you could even go, but some people have even done some videos on this, so you can even look it up on YouTube and things of this nature. There seemed to have been an issue with him tipping off his pitches, and it was very deliberate. You could actually see the way he was holding the ball in his glove when he was coming to a set, that you could see his glove was wider when he was going for the breaking ball, and the glove was narrower when he was throwing the fastball. So it got to the point where teams were figuring out what he was throwing, which that's a problem no matter how good your stuff is. So they did seem to remedy that. And if you go and look at his last 6 appearances in September last year, he pitched much better. Now, to sit here and say with 100% certainty, there isn't a little bit of question or a little bit of doubt until we see him look like the Ryan Helsley of before going to the Mets last July, that's fair, So I feel pretty good about him, right? I think he's going to be, I think that was a well thought out, calculated, relatively buy low, because, if he didn't have that bad month for the Mets, he was going to cost way more than 2 years, $28 million. So I like that. Problem for me is in a modern bullpen, knowing starters don't go as deep into games as they once did 10 or 20 years ago, let alone 40 or 50 years ago. You need 4 or 5 guys in that bullpen that don't necessarily all need to be able to close out a game, but you need 4 or 5 guys that can pitch late in games for you, because, you might have 5 one-run games in a week, right? Ryan Helsley's probably not going to be able to pitch in every single one of those if you're trying to keep him fresh and healthy. So my question and my concern for where their bullpen is right now is, I like the Helsley signing. I like the fact that they brought back Andrew Kittredge, although right now he's dealing with a little bit of a shoulder issue that's keeping him out for, again, shouldn't be too long, but he's going to miss opening day. But who else is going to pitch high leverage? Who's going to pitch the 8th and 9th inning for this team on the nights when Ryan Helsley needs a blow, right? So that's where I kind of look at this thing and say, I would have liked to have seen them do more with the bullpen. Right now, you look at the bullpen. Yeah. Okay, they've got Keegan Aiken. I like Keegan Aiken. I don't know if I like him to be my second best reliever as presently constructed. We'll see. Yennier Cano was an all-star a couple years ago, but he had a bad year this past year. Which guy is he going to be? Hopefully he can be closer to that guy he was a few years ago, but if not, can you trust him? And, they're going to be counting on a couple guys that pitched well for them when they traded away 4 relievers before the deadline last year, and they gave out all these opportunities to unknown guys, including some guys that they acquired themselves off waivers and trades and what have you. So like Dietrich Enns and Rico Garcia pitched well for them last August and September. Problem is, last August and September, they were in last place and no pressure and playing out the strings. So that's not to say those guys can't be good for them, but there's a whole lot of maybe and a whole lot of if and a whole lot of question mark when it comes to, 4 or 5 guys that could be in their bullpen. One guy I didn't mention that I do hope will be good for them, Tyler Wells. If he's healthy, this is a guy who's pitched well throughout his Orioles career, but he hasn't been healthy for a long time, and he hasn't pitched out of the bullpen much since go back to, I guess, when he was a Rule 5 pick 5 years ago. So, that's not exactly a murderer's row of bullpen arms that I just rattled through there. So,
You're
yeah,
right.
as much as I do have some optimism about their rotation, I am very much concerned about their bullpen, which sure, Mike Elias can go out and trade for a reliever or two as the season goes on. That's not something that's impossible to do. At the same time, the American League East with the Yankees and the Blue Jays and the Red Sox, you don't want to be dropping winnable games early in the season by blowing leads in the 8th and 9th innings. So that is something. If there's something that I take more pause on about the Orioles and their chances in 2026 than anything else, it's the current state of their bullpen.
I'm kind of excited to watch it this year. Last year I was watching a little bit of it, even though it was pretty. It got pretty bad at the end.
Really bad. It was bad at the beginning. The problem was the beginning. I mean, they just never recovered after that. Yeah.
Yeah, at the beginning.
I need to ask. I just want to ask you a question because you've been great. You have no idea. You've been great. I just want to ask is maybe at the end of the Orioles season, as the Ravens start to come back up again, maybe we can have you back on again.
Yeah.
To talk sports and everything.
Absolutely.
I've gotten to like you. I've gotten to liking you. Keeping Nestor in check a little bit as he starts going, getting all worried, Debbie Downer all the time, and you kind of keep him in track, which is kind of fun. But I like watching you. I mean, you're really the only, when you come on, you're really the only one that I listen to while you guys are back and forth. But I know you got anything else more for him?
He's given me more than I could have dreamed of. So
it's
most of my questions, are, I guess, slightly negative questions because I'm just concerned about both the Orioles and the Ravens. So,
no, I mean, one thing. I mean, we all have our opinions, and look, if we all agreed and we all were optimistic all the time, that would be boring. If we were all pessimistic about everything, that wouldn't be very fun. I mean, there are things about the Orioles, like I'm excited that they have Pete Alonso now. I'm excited that they seem to have a lineup now that has a lot of depth. I think they have a lot of exciting. Some exciting starting pitchers that I'm looking forward to watching. But yeah, I'm concerned about the bullpen, right? I mean, I'm concerned that Jordan Westburg's hurt again, and Jackson Holliday is not going to be ready for opening day. So, but and are they the best team in the American League East? If I'm picking my making my predictions, I don't have them winning the division, but I think they have a heck of a chance to be a wild card. And in baseball, in this day and age, you get into the playoffs and you see what happens, right? So, so I'm cautiously optimistic about the Orioles coming off of a terrible year. And on the Ravens front, I mean, they still have a lot of work to do. There's no question about that. That said, if you have a healthy Lamar Jackson and whatever else, right? If you have a healthy Lamar Jackson, the Ravens have a heck of a chance, right? So
he was hurt last year. You can tell.
Yeah. So let's see what a new head coach looks like. Let's see what a new coaching staff looks like. Hopefully they do some more to their offensive line because they need to. But all that being said, I mean, I look at the current state of the AFC North. Unlike the AL East, where it's stacked, the AFC North right now, I mean, get back to me on the Bengals when they fix their defense, right? I mean, this has been a problem for them going on a few years now. And in Pittsburgh's case, I think they've made some good moves, but
what do you think what do you think of them hiring what's his name?
Mike McCarthy?
Yeah, from because he's been Dallas and he's been Green Bay. What do you think of that hire?
I mean, I'll say this. I mean, I think he's a good coach, but I think Mike Tomlin was a great coach, right? I mean, I will say this. I think there are some interesting questions about what the Steelers are going to look like now without Mike Tomlin, because for as much as maybe he got some criticism in the sense that they weren't winning playoff games and not being no longer being a juggernaut in the AFC, which is true, but part of me does wonder if you kind of look at those rosters and you look at what their quarterback situation's been for years now. I mean, even go back to Roethlisberger's last couple years when he was no longer an elite quarterback. And I kind of wonder, you sure you didn't just, throw the baby out with the bathwater in terms of like Tomlin was kind of overachieving with what they had, considering some of their weaknesses. So it'll be interesting, but that said, I think Mike McCarthy's a good coach. I think they've made some good moves in free agency, but at the same time, if you're going to ask me, do I want Lamar Jackson at age 29 or Aaron Rodgers at age 42, I'm going to take Lamar Jackson 100 times out of 100. So, you know,
I didn't think Lamar Jackson. I didn't think Lamar. You know, he was switching over. You know, and I started hearing everything. You know, when he took over Flacco, and I said, man, he's going to suck. All he's going to do is run, and I mean, he can't pass at the beginning. You know, he was not accurate whatsoever. And man, he's done an absolute wonderful job. I mean, just he's been terrific for the most part. You know, he's been terrific. I know everybody but when he lost Harbaugh, I got to bring this up real quick. You said it. You know, when it comes to playoffs, you pay these guys a lot of money, and you can't pay these guys to be fumbling in playoff games, throwing interceptions, and you know, like Flowers at the goal line. You know, there's little things that happen, and you can't blame it on the coach. But sometimes I think that message gets a little old, I think.
Yeah, I think. Look, everything you just said about Lamar. I mean, Lamar's gonna be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, he could retire today and he'd be going to the Hall of Fame. I mean, he might not be a first ballot if he retired today, but he would be in the Hall of Fame. That's what kind of transcendent, amazing, incredible talent he is and accomplished. I mean, 2-time MVP, should have been a 3-time MVP. I mean, that's my opinion. When Allen won it over him, but Lamar, just like John Harbaugh, just like Eric DeCosta, just like Mark Andrews, who dropped the ball and fumbled the ball in Buffalo, just like Zay Flowers, which you alluded to, this era of the Ravens, you know, the post Super Bowl 47, you know, post trading Joe Flacco and drafting Lamar Jackson era, they've been underachievers in the postseason. They all have to wear that. And yeah, I think it got to the point, even though, you know, Harbaugh and Lamar faced the outsized blame for it, I think you looked at it and said, well, you got to try something different. And franchise 2-time MVP quarterbacks don't grow on trees. So you weren't going to dump Lamar. So yeah, it was time to move on from John Harbaugh, who I wish well in New York. And he should be remembered fondly for his entire body of work. I mean, won a Super Bowl, yada, yada, yada. But, you know, and this is something that I, you know, started kind of rattling around in my head a couple years ago, you know, when probably after they lost to Kansas City in the title game, where you kind of looked at it and said, you know, maybe John Harbaugh was becoming Andy Reid in Philadelphia, where you just say, you know, maybe it's run its course and it's time to just do something different. And it's a fresh start for both sides. And, you know, I think that's ultimately that, you know, it's kind of what Steve Bisciotti decided to do. And we're going to see if it works out. Right. I mean, if John Harbaugh goes to the Giants and they're in the playoffs, and I don't know, maybe Jackson Darts ends up being way better than anyone thinks, and they're in the Super Bowl and the Ravens fall off here over the next few years, then it'll look pretty dumb, right? But I think there's also scenarios where this could work out fine for both parties. So, but that said, I mean, yeah, for Jesse Minter, it's kind of a unique spot because you're coming in as a first-time head coach. Typically, when you are hired as a head coach, expectations aren't very high because usually they did a lot of losing before that. I mean, even last year, I mean, the Ravens were a Tyler Loop miss away from being in the playoffs, and who knows, maybe they win a playoff game or two, right? I mean, it could have been a very different story. So for Jesse Minter, it is tough. I mean, I like the hire. I'm impressed with him. We're going to see how it plays out, but he's facing a lot of pressure right off the bat here. I mean, you know, if John Harbaugh goes 6-11 with the Giants this year, he's not getting fired, or people will say, well, hey, they're a little bit better than they were last year. If Jesse Minter goes, even if he just goes 8-9 again, right? With you know, the Ravens go 8-9 again, they're going to look at that and say, oh man, did they make the right hire here? Did they mess this up? So that's kind of it's kind of a tough spot for him to be in, but he knows that. Like, he signed up, he understands he's in a great spot. I mean, but you know, heavy is the crown, right? You come in to a team that has talent, then expectations are going to be higher.
This is the first time that I'm actually going to really sit down, and it's been a while. Last year, my wife's downstairs watching football while I'm up here doing stuff. You know, so we watched it. It's you know, I told him it's one of them things that on Sundays, you know, we kind of do the little spread for us too, and we sit down and we watch the Ravens and all. and we got away from that. But we might do it this year with the new coach. Kind of a little excitement with the Ravens and everything. You got anything else for him there, Austin, my buddy?
No, sir. You've been wonderful. Appreciate all the information.
We're
Sounds
lagging.
good.
That's what it is. That's
Sounds
why
good.
he's pausing a little bit. Well, you've
I
been great. That's the whole reason why I wanted to bring you on, because I just think were you a can I say a sports nerd young? What was the thing that said, man, I want to do this?
Well, once I figured out I wasn't good enough to play in the NFL or Major League Baseball. But I always enjoyed writing. I mean, I definitely had much more of a writing background. I mean, I do plenty of writing at BaltimorePositive.com, our station's website. But I was always, I mean, I can remember being a kid, and I mean, Rex Barney was the PA announcer at Memorial Stadium and then Camden Yards, right? And I always had an affinity for him and the way he would announce a starting lineup. And while Chuck Thompson was a little, Chuck Thompson's heyday and his prime was a little bit before my time, I grew up listening to John Miller doing Orioles games on the radio, and I just had such an interest in that. I've never done play-by-play, but that was something that immediately sparked my interest at a young age, where I kind of thought, I mean, if I don't make it to, if I'm not the next Cal Ripken for the Orioles, or, I'm not going to be a Raven, then, covering the games and having a chance to write about them and talk about them. I mean, that was something that was always appealing to me. So, I don't remember like one specific moment as much as just, I loved sports as a kid, and I played sports as a kid, and, I was okay, but I was nothing special. I figured out by the time I was probably 12 or 13 that, I probably wasn't going to be in the major leagues. So, from that point on, I started thinking more. Yeah. I kept playing, but I was pretty realistic, right? I mean, I wasn't a phenomenal athlete or anything like that. So, but yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it, and I always had the ability to write, and I was blessed with the ability to speak and be able to speak in front of other people without getting too nervous. So, I ultimately wound up doing that. Kind of some roundabout twists and turns along my journey to WNST, but certainly have enjoyed doing it.
Please tell everybody where they can get any information for Orioles, Ravens, where they can see you at, where they can. So I know you got a text line and all that stuff. Let everybody know where they can hear everything about you and can listen to you and stuff like that.
Absolutely. You can hear me on the regular. There's no set schedule, but I'm on regularly on AM 1570 WNST based out of Towson with Nestor Aparicio. We're talking Ravens. We talk Orioles. We'll talk different things like that from time to time. So, but you can check that out. You can follow me on social media at Baltimore Luke, whether that's Twitter, that's Instagram. And certainly you can check out all of my work at BaltimorePositive.com. You can also go there to sign up for our text service. So, text service, any significant breaking news, whether it was, we thought a trade for Max Crosby, and then news that the Ravens had backed out of it, and then the news that they signed Trey Hendrickson instead. Any significant local sports news sent directly to your mobile device via the WNST text service. You can check out all of that, though, at BaltimorePositive.com.
You're the man. That's why I brought you on, man. I appreciate it. You got anything, Austin, before we roll out?
No, again, much appreciated. You're a wealth of knowledge, sir.
Yeah, he just listen to him talk. That's why I brought him on. He's got enough information and everything that anybody's going to listen to this it's going to leave a lot smarter, like I was. Luke, thank you very much. I'll get in touch with you, maybe during the season, see how everything's going, and especially at the end of the year, how the Orioles are finishing up and how the Ravens are starting. And I'd love to get you back on again.
Yeah, sounds good, Sam. Anytime. Take care.
Thank you, sir. See you later, man. Hey, so if you'd like to support the channel, well, I know we're at the beginning, but I'm going to put a QR code right now on the screen. And if you click on that, that'll just buy me a coffee. That will help us out with a lot of traveling we're going to get ready to do and everything. So if you like this kind of stuff, we really would love you to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. So when we put up a new episode, no matter what it is, it'll notify you to let you know that we posted. All right. So we hope to see you on the next one.
See y'all
City.
later. Drug City, baby.
Drug City. All right, man. We'll see you on the next one.